Chapter 12, Yearbooks. School was out for the summer, but when Barry woke up the next day, he didn't feel his usual excitement at the months of total freedom ahead. What did any of it mean if he wasn't moving up to junior high with his friends? Not to mention the horrible nightmares. For the last few nights, he had tried to stay up as late as possible, keeping watch for Hook's ghost, but eventually he always fell into a fitful sleep full of bad dreams. Now that he was awake, he felt even more exhausted than he had before bed. At this rate, he was going to turn into a sleep-deprived zombie like his mother, who needed mega doses of caffeine to function. Graduation replayed in his head, haunting him just as much as the pirate captain. "You'll always be in 5th grade. I'm your teacher. Forever." His teacher's words echoed through his head, hitting him a little bit harder each time. While he had wanted to stay a kid, Barry hadn't considered what would happen if everyone else grew up, including his best friends. One of the main reasons he'd made his wish was to keep his best friends, not lose them. He remembered them celebrating their graduation without him while he hid backstage. This was all turning out to be the exact opposite of a dream come true. Even his mom letting him have a second helping of his favorite sugar bomb cereal didn't cheer him up. In fact, he couldn't believe it. He was starting to get sick of how sweet it was. It made his teeth hurt and gave him a low-grade headache. He scowled at the friendly cartoon pirate on the box. "Walk the plank, matey," he whispered. "Have fun playing all day, kiddo," Mom said, waving him out the door. "Fun. What's that?" Rita said, scowling at him from the kitchen table, where her nose was buried in a thick workbook. High school was out for the school year, but now began something even worse. SAT prep classes. Whatever that is, Barry thought, reminding himself that there were still good things about staying a kid. He grabbed his backpack and skateboard. Also, it was still summer break. This was his favorite time of the year because it meant one thing: no school. His friends wouldn't be moving up to junior high without him for a couple of months. They could still hang at the skate park, try out some new tricks, and look around for some fun trouble to get into. Feeling the tiniest bit better, he mounted his skateboard and headed out. He spotted Michael and John lounging with their boards in a shady spot under a big oak tree. Barry skated up to them. His backpack was strapped to his shoulders with the hook inside. "Hey guys, what's up?" Barry greeted them. They both looked at him, confused. "Hey kid," Michael said. "What do you want?" It's summer," Barry said, kicking his board up and grabbing the end. "We always hang out in the park together." "We hang out?" John said, glancing at Michael. "We don't even know you." Barry's mouth dropped open in shock. "Yeah, do you go to our school?" Michael added. "What are you in, 4th grade?" "What?" Barry stammered. They just stared up at him. Barry thought of all the pranks they had played on each other over the years and hoped that was what was happening now. He forced a laugh. "Right. Nice prank," he said, plopping down next to them. "What prank?" John said, not laughing or breaking character. "We're serious. What's your name anyway?" They both stared at him. No, this is not happening," Barry thought. "Guys, I'm Barry, your best friend," he said. "We do everything together." "Barry? Barry. We don't know anyone named Barry," Michael cut him off. "Do we?" "Nope, and I'm pretty sure we remembered our best friend," John added. They both snickered at Barry. Nice try, dude, Michael said. You're just some elementary school loser who wants to hang with the older kids. Right. We're in junior high now, John said. Go play with someone your own age. We've got way more important stuff to do. Barry stared at his two best friends in the world, waiting for them to break into grins or tell him that it was just a sick joke. But they remained stone-faced. Being stabbed by a sword couldn't have felt any worse than this. How could they not remember him? Feeling heartbroken, Barry collected his board and sulked away. He could hear them laughing at his expense. What a weirdo, Michael whispered to John. Trying to pretend to be our best friend? John jeered. Like, how desperate do you have to be? This was worse than not being called at graduation, and missing the concert, and not getting to have a birthday party. Nothing could be worse than this. Why is this happening to me? Why did I ever make that wish? Was he really never going to grow up? As he skated away from the park, he spotted the elementary school in the distance. There was only one way to be sure. Barry crept around to the side of the school, sticking to the shadows. He ran his hands along the red brick wall as he went. It was eerily quiet and deserted now that school was out for the summer. The various summer camps and programs wouldn't start up for another few weeks. He scanned the place for security guards, but even they seemed to have packed up and gone home, as grateful for a break as the kids. Barry usually loved the summer. He loved the heat of the sun even when the temperature crested 100 degrees, which seemed to happen more often every year. He loved the chill of ice cream on his tongue, the long, lazy days spent skateboarding with his friends. His former friends, he thought, with a shudder, remembering their cold expressions at the park. Summer would not be the same without them. They were the Lost Boys, but without them, Barry just felt lost. Still clutching his skateboard, he tried the back entrance by the playground, but it was locked and wouldn't budge. Too easy, he thought, releasing the handle. He crept around to the side of the library, peering through the window. It was dark and empty inside. He could see rows of books spanning back, vanishing into the dark recesses of the spacious room. Clusters of desks with computers and lamps and padded chairs for reading took up the more open areas. The checkout desk was dark and empty. Glancing around to make sure that nobody was lurking nearby, Barry pulled the hook out of his backpack. The sharp tip glinted in the midday sunlight. Sweat beaded on his forehead, both from the heat and his nerves. Then he slid the hook under the window's latch, twisted it, and popped open the lock. He glanced down at the hook, impressed. Then he stuffed it back in his backpack and stashed his skateboard in the bushes outside. In one smooth motion, he slid the window open and slithered through it. Being small still had some benefits. This wasn't the first time he'd snuck into a place he didn't belong, and at this rate, it was unlikely to be the last. The air inside the library smelled stale and felt warmer than normal. Usually, it was kept at sub-zero temperatures by the blasting air conditioning. Even so, Barry felt a chill as he crept around the stacks. He kept expecting a security guard to bust him, or worse, for Captain Hook to appear. But it was deserted. After a few moments of searching, he located the right section. His eyes fell on the collection of old school yearbooks that spanned back decades. The newer ones were bright and the pages crisp, while the older ones were yellowed and dusty. He pulled down the most recent yearbook, flipping to the page for his 5th grade class. Colorful pictures of his classmates stared back at him, all familiar faces. Sure enough, his picture was right there, along with the other kids in his class. His eyes darted to his friends' portraits. Michael looked stiff and uncomfortable in his picture. His mom had clearly made him comb his hair into a dorky style and wear that lame polo shirt. Then he found John pulling a goofy face with crossed eyes, even though that wasn't allowed. Leave it to John to always break the rules. Barry smirked, but then sadness swept through him again. He remembered their jeering laughter at the park and them telling him to go play with someone his own age. "But I am your age," he had wanted to yell back at them. The yearbook was proof of that. He'd take it back to the park to show them that he was actually in their class. Maybe it was just an elaborate prank and they were taking it too far. That had to be it. Buoyed by that thought, Barry turned to leave, but then the yearbook from last year caught his eye. It couldn't hurt to bring more than one to prove that they'd been in the same class together since kindergarten. After all, that was how they became best friends in the first place, learning to skateboard after school and falling in love with the same band. Barry reached for the yearbook and pulled it down. He flipped to the 4th grade class pictures, expecting to see his face superimposed in front of the fake blue black background staring back at him. But Barry didn't see his picture. He double-checked the year and also the alphabetical order. Where was it? It has to be a mistake. He located Michael's and John's pictures. They were right where they should be, along with the other kids from his 4th grade class. But where was Barry's class picture? A chill shot through him as he remembered Mr. Bates' words. "You stay in my class forever." Barry's fingers trembled as he flipped to 5th grade. Mr. Bates smiled back, and then pictures of his 5th grade students took up the rest of the page. These faces looked most unfamiliar to Barry. Maybe he'd passed them in the hallways, but they were older than him. Kids mostly stuck with the other kids from their class. That's when he saw something that made his heart jump. His picture. Barry's picture. Right there in the middle of the 5th grade class. This is not happening. He flipped back to the 4th grade page, double-checking it. Michael and John hadn't budged. Then he double-checked the year. It all checked out. He should have been in 4th grade too. His mouth went dry, and he tasted metal on his tongue. Quickly, he started pulling down yearbooks from the shelf, going back several years. In each yearbook, Barry was pictured along with the 5th grade, even when Michael and John were in kindergarten. Barry was there with the 5th grade class. Then, in one book, he spotted Rita. His sister's school picture was right next to his picture in the 5th grade class. Barry darling, Rita darling. Rita looked so young. She looked his age. It was so weird seeing the two pictures next to one another this way. It made his stomach turn. We used to be the same age? Starting to feel panicked, Barry grabbed the next yearbook. In this one, Rita was in 4th grade, while Barry remained in 5th. How could he have ever been older than his sister, who was now 16 years old and in high school? He grabbed more yearbooks. Year after year, Barry stayed in 5th grade, while his classmates changed and strangers surrounded him. He found one where his sister was in kindergarten. Her girlish smile and gape-toothed grin sent a shudder down Barry's spine. Chilled, he dropped the yearbook. They had piled up at his feet in big jumble. Hundreds of kids grinned back at him, looking ghostly at the dim lighting. Most of them were strangers to his eyes. With trembling hands, he reached for a yearbook that was labeled Class of 1984. That was decades ago. He located the page for the 5th grade class. Mr. Bates hadn't been the teacher back then. A strange woman with permed hair and thick glasses grinned back. He glanced down at the pictures, then gasped in shock. "No, it can't be true," he whispered. But sure enough, there was his class picture, surrounded by strange, old-timey kids. I wasn't even alive in 1984. but he was in the school yearbook, the same exact age as he was right now. He slammed the yearbook shut in horror. It tumbled from his hands, hitting the carpeted floor with a thud. Suddenly, the pages started flipping on their own, turning faster and faster. They landed back on Barry's class portrait from 1984. He was wearing strange clothes, acid-wash jeans, and a baggy fluorescent yellow sweatshirt. His hair was trimmed into a severe bowl cut. His own face stared back at him from the pages, even though it was impossible. Suddenly, a dark shadow fell over him. It was accompanied by a deep, jeering laugh that made Barry's skin crawl. Just as Barry began to cautiously turn around, a sword slashed out of the shadows, shredding the 1984 class yearbook and scratching Barry's face from existence.